Okay, now Cindy's been fighting. Cindy Brown is a gold medal Olympian. She won the basketball with her team in women's basketball Olympic gold in 1988. They stole her ID, then they stole her cash in her bank account, they stole her limo, they stole her boat, stole her motorcycle, stole a couple of her cars, and then they took the equity out of her house, all without her consent or permission. That was all about 10 to 12 years ago. She's still in her house, she's still fighting the crooked court, in this case, Judge Stafford in Department C 66 in Orange County in Santa Ana, 700 West Civic Center, where I witnessed other crooked trials. But Cindy did this interview. She was going into court expecting these two little female attorneys we didn't know they were going to be, who these attorneys were going to be representing the so-called bank, call this certain debt collector law firm that ends with the name Steele. We thought she was going to lose. So we did this interview right before we went to court. What happened in court was really very interesting. Cindy, in this interview on her doorstep, thinking she's going in for the last time to get railroaded out of her house after fighting for 12 years the corrupt court and the corrupt, fraudulent debt collector system. So, Cindy Brown, tell me what's happening now. Today's 22nd of June 17. What's happening?
Today is kind of like almost a continuance of June 20th, where I actually filed a ex parte and I sought to reset the trial date because the plaintiff's attorneys have not complied with the Rule 317 statement of compliance, a joint statement of compliance, that is. They've basically thwarted the whole operation of preparing for a trial because they don't want to get any evidence from the defendant into the case. So what they've done is they've gone around discovery, where they've actually had orders to produce special interrogs, form interrogs, admissions, productions of documents. They've completely gone around all of that. The court seems to be helping them tremendously. It is my belief the clerk of the court is also in on it, because when I filed my ex parte over the phone just to get the reservation numbers, the opposing counsel contacted me via email demanding a courtesy copy. And, you know, that raised my eyebrows. How did she know about that when I hadn't contacted her? The only way that she would have been able to know that an ex parte was being filed is by the clerk of the court contacting them directly, because I hadn't even filed my paperwork yet, because I hadn't served on the opposing side yet. So that's indicating to me that there's definitely collusion between the courts and the plaintiff, which is the plaintiff in this case is the Bank of New York Mellon, which is Wells Fargo doing business as the Bank of New York Mellon Incorporated. So fast forward here, the ex parte did not turn out as planned. In fact, all of the motions were denied, where I was going to compel them to provide admissions, productions of documents, also to ask for sanctions, also sanctions on failure to abide by a court order, which the court gave them 15 days to respond. The court basically
allowed them to not respond and just move on down the road?
Yes, correctly. They just kind of washed it under the table and blamed it on me that I didn't inform the court. Well, what do you think I filed the ex parte for? There's no discovery. So if there's no discovery going to trial, then what are we going to trial on? That's my whole thing. There's nothing but surprises throughout this whole entire trial. Because there's never been any discovery. Plaintiffs have never appeared in one hearing at all. So you can't cross-examine them, you can't depose them.
Pretty good strategy, and it's working, isn't it?
It's working because there is the...
But is it right?
No, it's unconstitutional. It violates every due process afforded. I've held back by not coming forward on previous shows of yours because I wanted to keep the facts and the evidence kind of protected. But I'm going to tell you that there's a preponderance of evidence against the plaintiffs, and they know it. We've subpoenaed their records prior, and inside it clearly states hold title issues. So America Servicing Company, who is the subsidiary of Wells Fargo Bank, knew that there were title issues, that there were fraudulent documents inside. There were suspense notices indicating that they needed an original note. The HUD-1 had been missing. The prepayment addendum was missing. Their page 4 of the URL, which is the Uniform Residential Loan Application, was missing. And all of these things that were missing turned out to either had a forged signature of mine or they had been altered. The documents were clearly altered, and they don't want that information in the record because it would point all 10 fingers at Wells Fargo Bank and their cross-selling of products, which the nation knows about Wells Fargo because the Senate hearings have brought forward when Elizabeth Warren and all the other senators in Congress questioned Wells Fargo and asked the question, did you steal from your customers? And the answer is yes, they stole. That's why John Stump was basically booted out of his position as president, CEO. And I recall drafting a letter to Mr. Stump, and it has a stamp of Mr. Stump receiving the letter, but he failed to return any correspondence back to me. In fact, I've written to Gavin Sang, who's the vice president of the Bank of New York Mellon, who is in New York. The Bank of New York Mellon is governed in New York with all these securities. Homeowners are awake. They know exactly what's going on with this securitization scheme. It's all a Ponzi scheme. And it's very clear in case law, Store Media versus Superior Court, also in Assumptions versus Superior Court, and Herrera versus Deutsch. But the courts don't read the material. They basically are patting us on the head to just kind of push us through like cattle as they're stealing our homes and moving us out of our homes and putting us into tent cities. I've received two calls this morning. Very disturbing. They were also summary judgments against those homeowners. In fact, the way in which the summary judgment works, it's a 75-day mandatory notice. So it has to be like 3.5 months out before that summary judgment can be
2.5 months.
2.5 months. I'm sorry. It should be 2.5 months for that document, that motion to be filed, so that someone can respond because it's a voluminous motion. In fact, the Bank of New York Mellon, Wells Fargo, and the attorneys who are behind this corruption sent me a packet, a 300-page packet, 6 times, if not 7, 300 pages, just terrorizing me through my P.O. box, dropping pounds of paper at the door, sending it via email.
And this wasn't noticed?
It was given to me 4 days before the hearing, so the court recognized, okay, that's too obvious, so we'll push it out a little bit and give her 14 days to respond. When in actuality, it takes a lot longer to respond to such a voluminous motion like that. So they pushed it out. However, doing the research and looking into that motion, it is clear that it is a mandatory notice of 75 days. 75 days. Even there's no exception. They must, even in the unlawful, unlimited jurisdiction and limited, which included local rules. It's mandatory. Now, the catch-all here behind the summary judgment is if you actually answer or you appear for that motion, you actually waive the summary judgment. Okay? That's how I read it. You waive it. So by me making an appearance today, I waive the notice, and so the judge can actually grant that motion. The other things, what they're doing in these summary judgment
So are you going to appear anyway?
Yeah, I'm going to appear under duress because I've already submit my opposition inside. So I basically waived my notice by opposing it, and I've been served. Even though the law says it's 75 days. But see, you have to read further down that when you answer that notice of summary judgment adjudication, or in the alternative adjudication, summary judgment adjudication, you basically waive your right because you answered it, so you actually received it. And then when you appear, you waive it because you're here to argue it. But you're doing it under duress because pro se litigants don't know those little loopholes that the opposing counsel's trained to know and to pull you in so that they can violate your right by not going to a jury trial, which the judge in the last hearing said that he was denying all my motions, but he wanted to appear that he was being fair by moving the June 26th hearing or trial to July 17th. And then what he's doing is, and I said, well, it still doesn't clear up the fact that we have a summary judgment on the 22nd. I'm going to presume that you're going to grant that. Therefore, the July 7th trial really won't matter because you've already granted the summary judgment, and that means it's done. Get out. In fact,
So they will then, in effect, have denied you a jury trial
correct.
through paperwork,
Correct.
through flim-flamming and paperwork, the crooked attorneys, with the help, aid and abetting by the court, in this case, Judge Timothy Stafford, helped them flim-flam you out of your house.
That's if he
And
actually
deny your
grants
jury,
it.
and deny your jury trial, if he grants
If he
it
grants
today.
it.
If he
Now-
doesn't grant it today, what do you hope to get?
If he doesn't grant it today, then I definitely have to prepare for trial, and I need to bring forward all the evidence, what I have. I have substantial.
And
I
you
have
got to get it on the record yet, don't you?
You have to get it in the record. But the whole key here is getting your discovery in, which is what they're denying the people to get their evidence in. We've seen numerous times here where documents that were highly questionable were being accepted as true and correct by rebuttable presumption by the court. Rebuttable presumption is when the court takes on presumption that everything that opposing counsel is saying is true and correct, and we're going to take that as the fact. Okay, it's done. You go through. But as we all know, it's a ultra viral, and it violates every afforded constitutional right and protection. And it's not based on the merits because no one's looking at the detail. The recitals inside the documents are false. And in the county recorder's offices, they even say that. There's the recordation policy that says if it meets the requirements of recording, they must take the document in, but they cannot ensure the correctness of the document. So if you pull the policies, it's telling you that. And they're saying they don't have authority, nor have they been authorized to make a determination to the correctness or truthfulness inside the document. So it becomes an issue of the district attorney to do the investigation and to find the truth, fraud, alleged facts, and make a determination. But as we know, Tony Rackauckus, he doesn't do task force real estate. He's let the real estate fraud just pass through. In fact, all of them.
Tony Rackauckus, in effect, has approved of white-collar crime.
He basically has
Turned a
accepted
blind eye.
money. He's turned a blind eye. He's accept the monies for the real estate task force fraud unit, and he picks and chooses who's going to get their day and who's not. He's not looking at all the facts. They don't even give you the time of day. Taxpayers pay their taxes on their properties and have been long-term residents in this community, and you have no protection. They've just been taking your money all along, making you believe that you're a part of the community. In fact, they're redlining. Redlining is when they take a specific group of minorities that they feel don't belong in your neighborhood, and they don't offer the same services as they would to others. And in Villa Park, this is a clear case of redlining because I've been here 25 years. I never had any problems prior. I've never been late on my payment, never late on taxes, never had any of these issues up until when they were attempting to steal the home and steal the equity out of the property, which they clearly did.
And they had to do an identity theft to accomplish that.
Yes, They absolutely, it took them 5 loan application alterations to create the perfect loan app that would pass through the system to get approved. Then they took the identity and my information and submitted for a loan, created the loan docs with an unknown person because the notary, who's lying as well, saying that, yeah, you signed the documents, but in deposition, when we're asking her, where did you get the documents from? She doesn't know who she got the documents from. How can you not know where you got the documents from? If you're conducting business, and she's lying her face off because, well, I'm an independent notary. Well, even independent or not, you have to know where those documents are coming from, and you have to know where you're getting your check from. She knows, but she's withholding information, so she's concealing facts.
Do you think the court will ever let you get your documents on the court record?
No. No, they're fighting me. They're fighting me tooth and nail so that I don't get any facts into the records because they don't want any trail for anyone else to know how much substantial information I have against them. I have it down to a T, almost like it's unreal. To IP addresses, to notary fraud, internal revenue.
So should the state assembly move to impeach and remove Judge Timothy Stafford?
If he does not do right today, he should be removed. In fact, there should be a open investigation on that department and on that clerk, and they definitely need to bring in the attorneys that are representing this case because it's putting a lot of harm on me. I've fought this identity theft for a very long time. They've known about it. They're acting as if they didn't know, and they continue to move.
And they denied my media request today, which was given to them.
No evidence. They don't want any evidence.
They don't want anything recorded. They don't want any evidence in the court of their fraud.
This grand theft has taken a toll. I've lost tons of weight, stressed out all the time, having to draft voluminous motions to defend myself. The motions I don't think are even being read because all of them are denied. And at the end of the day, even though he's denying him on paper, he'll make amendments orally by seeing if he can work something out different. Well, why isn't that amendment in the order that you're actually reconsidering the motion and just put granted? No, because it looks on paper better to just say denied. You didn't win any motions. You didn't. So there's no choice but to grant the Bank of New York Mellon, who is the face of Wells Fargo Bank.
Under another name.
Under another, doing business as. Attorney, in fact, doing business as the Bank of New York Mellon.
Thank you very much for this interview, Cindy. We'll see how it goes. I'll be there.
I hope it turns out right. God willing, we need some light on what's going on, how they're stealing houses. There needs to be a huge investigation on redlighting. I hope the Department of Fair Employment and Housing starts to step in. We're seeing a flux of disabled people, seniors, losing their homes to this corruption. The courts are acting rogue. They're not following the statutes. Congress needs to step in. Ted Gowdy, he's doing a fantastic job over there in South Carolina. He made it very clear that judges can't be witnesses and that they can't give their expert opinions. That's what experts are for. And if there's any cross-examination, that's what the attorney advocates are there for.
But you're a Congresswoman Sanchez. She took an interest but seems to have lost all interest.
Well, it seems like there could have been someone that maybe got in her ear to tell her to stand down. It's untelling what happened.
And apparently she did stand down.
And Congress is supposed to be the closest thing to the people when the people have been deprived of their due process or any rights for that much. And when Congress is not listening to the people and we have nowhere to go to report these crimes, then what are we doing? There is no order. There is no law and order. And so that's the whole thing.
And we no longer have a government by the people, for the people, do we?
It appears that way. It seems.
And if we don't have a
something's very
government
rogue.
by and for the people, are we obligated to follow any of these orders, laws, or rules?
Well, it seems that way. Something doesn't seem right. If the people are held to a standard of following specific laws and orders, and they're held accountable. If they do not, there's consequences, but they're not held on the other side with the same consequences.
When the government violates
Yeah.
the law and the judges violate the law.
They have special privileges.
Thank you for the interview.
You're welcome.
Well, so that was our interview before we went into Judge Stafford crooked courtroom in Department C66 on the 3rd or 4th floor of the Orange County Santa Ana Courthouse. I think it was the 22nd of June, she said. And what happened was kind of astonishing. Again, the plaintiff that's trying to steal her house after stealing her identity substitutes in 2 more new attorneys that she had never seen before, I'd never seen before. These 2 little women with their little law degrees, boy, they were young and pretty and nice hair done and high heels and all that goody stuff that impressed these geezer old judges. Cindy's first thing she did was object because she hadn't been given a notice, and under their bar-carded criminal code, they're supposed to notice the other side that somebody new is now representing the plaintiff or the defendant, whichever case it be. And they hadn't done that. So Cindy objects, says they're not witnesses, they don't know anything about this case, and they didn't notice me, so they can't speak. And Judge Stafford said, well, they're making a special, I'm going to allow it. Wrong. That was a mistake by Judge Stafford. You should say, well, just postpone this whole thing 30 days, and then you give Cindy Brown proper notice that you're now taking over the case. And what's interesting is every time Cindy goes to court, it's a different attorney she's got to talk to. They never send the same attorney twice. What kind of a criminal outfit is this Burdick and Steele or whatever their name is? They're going along, and Cindy keeps objecting, and Judge Stafford, I would love to show you the video of this, but Judge Stafford denied my media request twice to really drive it home. Sent me 2 separate letters denying my right to tape it. Cindy's objecting, judge is overruling, Cindy's objecting, judge is overruling, and letting the crooked young female attorneys whose names are and should be forgotten because they're just substituting in. And next time there'll be some other attorney. It's never the same attorneys. What's going on here? So anyway, they're going along. Now, Cindy's been denied discovery, which she has an absolute right to do, but they want her to hire a crooked attorney so he will throw her under the bus and not subpoena the correct discovery evidence. They've denied her continually, all the time. They're denying her. So I just have to wonder. The judge is a crook. Judge Stafford is a crook. Timothy Stafford, judge of Department C66, won't force the other side to give the discovery Cindy's requested over and over and over. And he just keeps pushing the case along. So the judge is saying, well, this whole thing's already been decided and it's been appealed, and the appellate court agreed with the lower court, and so we just move on down to unlawful detainer and we kick you out of the house. That was where he's headed. And Cindy, objection. We've never had a trial. The evidence has not been allowed on the court. Over and over, this sort of thing goes on. So I'm wondering what the heck is going on here. What's going on here? And finally, Cindy objects again when one of the attorneys starts to talk. She says, she can't even speak. Objection. She has not noticed. She has no standing. Without standing, you, judge, don't have subject matter jurisdiction. They don't have standing to be here. This is this whole proceeding is rotten. And, Cindy's saying words to that effect. I wish I could give you the actual video, but of course, Judge Stafford, being the crooked judge he is, denied my video request. Now, actually, I could just show you the video and I could shut up. And the video would show you what I'm telling you. You wouldn't have to take my word for it. But no, the crooked judges don't want video disclosing what's going on in their crooked, bar-carded, non-Article 3 courts. So this time, we're getting towards, 40 minutes into this session in front of Judge Stafford, the crooked judge of C-66, and Cindy objects again, and finally the little Missy over there, who's making her first appearance in this case, gets her fur up, and she's really hussy, and she stands up and says, well, Your Honor, I worked for this company, Steel and blah, 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 for 2 or 3 years, and I'm on the record of being with this company, and it's, blah, blah, and the plaintiff doesn't have to make an appearance. Yes, the plaintiff has to make one initial appearance, or the trustee, which she was not the trustee of. And she reads off the trust, the security trust number, the whole nomenclature. She reads it into the court record, and Cindy goes, hallelujah! She'd been trying to get that information. Just what is the name of the trust that is stealing my home, that stole the equity? She just wanted to get the name of the nomenclature of the trust. They wouldn't disclose it. 10 years, and she couldn't get them to disclose it. And the crooked judges, not just Judge Stafford, but the crooked judges before him, would not make them disclose it. And here, the little dingbat representing this debt collector law firm gives it up, puts it on the record. And Cindy goes, well, Your Honor, now that she's identified the plaintiff, and she pulls up a piece of paper, by act of Congress in such as about 10 years ago, this trust was declared null and void. So she's trying to evict me. She's trying to steal my house on a trust that's already been declared null and void by Congress. Boom. Judge Stafford goes, oh, it's getting hot in here. Okay, I'm going to change your date from July 7th to, we'll set it up for 2 months in August. You'll have your trial, Cindy Brown. And he was out of the courtroom. Gotcha, Judge Stafford. You not only didn't have subject matter jurisdiction, you illegally said they didn't have to give notice, and they didn't even have a valid plaintiff because the plaintiff had been declared null and void by Congress a decade ago. Hello, you got wood in your head, Judge Stafford? Cheers to you, Cindy Brown. And the beauty of it was, I was there watching it, even though I didn't have my video camera recapturing Judge Stafford's demeanor. I love to God his face. Man, his face looked like someone just piled a plate of dog crap in his face when Cindy read that off into the record. Good, now she got the discovery she's been trying to get for years, because the dingbat was what got her dander up. She said, oh, I can represent Steele and I'm blah, blah, and the plaintiff is such, and she read it into the record. The very evidence they'd been denying. See, that's what happens when you keep changing attorneys, and one attorney doesn't know what the next attorney is, and they don't care. They just get paid $1,000 or whatever to show up in court for 20, 30 minutes, and then $1,000 check. And they think they're going to make Cindy pay for it ultimately. They screwed themselves. I mean, that royal Wagener went right up where it's not supposed to go. And that's putting it politely. That Judge Stafford couldn't wait to get out of that courtroom. Boom, boom, it was all boom, boom, doors shut, he's gone, like within 2 minutes. Then the two little ladies, whose names are, well, I shouldn't say, but they sat there in the courtroom. We all left, and it wasn't just me. There was like 4 or 5 other women behind me witnessing this. So Cindy now not only has my affidavit and statement, she's got these other women to make affidavits as to why Stafford should be removed from the bench, put under criminal indictment, and go to prison. Judge Stafford should. And why Cindy should be granted fee simple, because the plaintiff never made an appearance. Why couldn't the plaintiff? Because it's been declared null and void. And that's exactly why people, they had refused to tell Cindy all these years. And when Cindy did hire that crooked attorney, I actually hired two of them. One was Nora Alberts, who she got rid of. Boy, she was a disaster, a real disaster. And she was a pretty blonde, but she was a disaster as an attorney. And there was another one before her, and both of them threw Cindy under the bus and let this thing keep rolling forward when all they had to do is say, hey, the plaintiff is null and void. Therefore, the plaintiff cannot appear, nor can the trustee, because the entity itself declared null and void by Congress, by act of Congress. That's how crooked that plaintiff corporate fiction was. So that was really good news for Cindy. And you saw the interview, she was really concerned. They had been railroading and railroading it, but Cindy pushed the issue where that little witch just got so irritated. She stood up and read off the plaintiff's serial number, the corporate fiction number. And that's the evidence that Cindy'd been needing for years and years. Never give up, people. These crooks made a big mistake. They stole tens of thousands, if not millions of homes from many Americans. But when they went up against Cindy Brown, a 1988 gold medal in basketball, women's basketball, gold medal winner, they made a huge mistake. So we come out of there and we're standing in the hallway and the two little ladies won't come out. They just sit there like they're scared or afraid or waiting for something. Everybody's left. The bailiff wants to lock up the room. And finally, the bailiff comes out in the hallway and he looks around and sees us. We're all just around the corner. And he goes back in and he guides them out of C66 department to the elevator, which is right across the hallway, and makes sure none of us, especially somebody like me, with a video camera, runs up to him and gets an interview. That was the whole point. He didn't want them. They didn't want to be captured on tape. They didn't want their face seen. Yes, we know what their names are, but they didn't want to be caught as part of this corrupt act, because both of those little gals should have their bar card yanked, and they should be put under indictment for trying to bring a plaintiff to court to steal Cindy Brown's house under color of law, but they had no law. Now the judge is in deep doo-doo. These two little attorneys are in deep doo-doo, and all the attorneys that represented the debt collector, fake, fictitious plaintiff that's been null and void by act of Congress, they all should have their bar card pulled and go directly to prison. What's, Reggie, you know what the prison sentence is for committing felonies in court? I think 10 to 15 years. The judge, all these attorneys that were part of stealing Cindy's house, 10 to 15 years in state prison, I think. And because there were federal issues, maybe they should do an additional 5 or 10 years in federal prison after they finish their state prison time. They're stealing people's homes with forged documents, with plaintiffs, security plaintiffs, corporate entity things that have been null and void for a decade. Talking about a decade, if you saw the opening, there was a point to that. I used that opening so many years back. Not because I looked younger, or that my co-host was cute, or that Hillary even looked younger back then. God, Hillary looks terrible these days. She really took losing. You know, the thing about stealing elections, the Democrats have been doing it for so many years, but Trump figured out how to beat them at their own game. They didn't expect that. And the bankers, I don't know, bankers maybe not liking Trump. But if Trump wants to slap them in, I diverge again. I got to stay on focus here. Anyway, so after this, the bailiff takes him to the elevator. And I said to somebody, hey, let's go outside. As soon as I got in the elevator, the bailiff runs over and said, don't follow them, don't follow them. I said, what's the problem if I go catch him outside the courtroom and ask him, no, don't leave him alone. Why is it these honorable attorneys, in this case, 20-something-year-old, maybe 26-year-old female attorneys, why are they embarrassed to have their face caught on tape stealing somebody's house with a plaintiff that's been null and void for years? Because it's a felony. and they don't want their face connected to the felony crime they just attempted again. But we got witnesses, and I won't forget their faces. We got their names, and we got their address. So we left the courtroom, and we went over to their corporate office for the law firm that supposedly they were representing that was trying to steal the house. This is the 30 Corporate Parkway down there in Orange County, and we looked for the law firm on there, and we could not find them listed. Side of the corporate offices and the place up at the door. The debt collector is a law firm who's got this door, no windows, and a little doorbell you have to ring to go in. This is the outside of that building. I would be ashamed to work in a place like that that had a debt collector stealing homes with fraudulent documents. An appearing plaintiff in Cindy Brown's case, and they fled back to this corporate office. These two young, probably fresh out of law school 3 or 4 years ago, that again represented the plaintiff who's never made an appearance in court. So there's no one Cindy can actually depose. And this led today where the judge ordered both sides to prepare a 5-page document on estoppel, collateral estoppel. And we'll now see what's going to happen. She also got a date. Cindy got a date 60 days out in August for a trial. So it was mostly a win for Cindy. But what she really needs to do is roll the clock back, and she did mention again and again there was fraud in the documents, fraud in the notary. And the attorneys, yeah, but now I would say there's fraud by the court, specifically fraud by Judge Stafford, when he said, oh, they're making a special appearance, they don't have to give you notice. Really? Well, what if Cindy sent somebody in, or someone appeared for Cindy and didn't give the other side notice, and Cindy didn't know? They could run the case without Cindy even knowing it's going on in her name. That's the point of having to give the other side notice. So we went up the elevator, we get up there, and there's the name of the plaintiff's attorney. Zit something, what's it, Steel, LLP, Limited Liability Company. And there's a door that's got a mahogany wood sheer, and I think a steel plate underneath the door, so bullets can't come through. Now this is right off the elevator. And we ring the bell. And we ring the bell. You know they got something to hide when they have signs like authorized persons only. Hello?
Yes, how can I help you?
Yes, could I speak to an attorney here?
Did you need to have an appointment?
No, I didn't have an appointment.
You need to have an appointment.
What number should I call?
Well, on our website we have our phone number, but the phone number is 714-848-7920.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Call that number and ask them why they're trying to steal Cindy's house with fraudulent documents and a plaintiff that's been declared null and void by Congress a decade ago.